Jeremy Siegel is here. He's professor emeritus of finance at the Wharton School of Business. He's also chief economist at Wisdom Tree. And, Jeremy, we've got a Fed meeting this week, but I guess that's overshadowed by the election. What do you think about the election's potential impact on the stock and bond markets?
Well, first, Becky, I think if it's, it's pretty clean one way or the other, we don't have something you guys were talking about, Bush, Gore, hanging Chad. If it isn't that close, if it's decisive either for Harris or Trump, I think there'll be a relief. I mean, that there's less likely to be huge challenges and uncertainty, and just getting that uncertainty behind us, I think, is positive. If there's if there's a Republican sweep of House, Senate, and the presidency, I expect the bond market to be wobbly. I expect them to be worried that Trump would enact all those tax cuts, and I think bond yields would rise. I think a split Congress, whoever wins the presidency, is probably the favorite for the markets, so that neither candidate can get his or her full plan pushed through. So I think that a lot of it does depend on the House or the Senate. I think the Senate would be pretty clear. I mean, the betting markets are over 80% for a Republican takeover of the Senate, but the House looks very close, and that might take days to be decided. But that could be very, very important in terms of how the market will react.
Hey, Jeremy, no matter what happens in the House, it's not going to be a big majority one direction or the other. So maybe that in itself is a bit of a hung jury situation, no matter what happens, because we've seen how difficult it is to control the House when you only have a few votes, 5 or fewer.
Well, that's true if it's that close. But as we all know, the Trump tax cuts enacted, in his first term are going to expire on December 31st of next year. Right. And the House, I would say, I mean, if they want to push through his tax cuts and extend it for another 7 years, I even think those radical members of the Republican Party would be voting for that. So a close one, even in the House, I think, would still give the Republicans an edge on getting their tax through. So I think that that's still going to be important in terms of whether all three are controlled by one or the other.
Jeremy, you mentioned the betting markets for the Senate, 80%. So 80 sounds like something that gives you some confidence. But beyond that, how effective do you, as a Wharton guy, how do you view betting markets versus polls? And both of them, some have their strengths in both, weaknesses in both. Do you need to use both? Is one or the other better? As additional facts come in, betting markets can totally flip from 90-10 to 10-9. And we know, and I mentioned earlier, Wisconsin was up 17 for Biden, and when it was all said and done, he won by 1. So are either one of them
neither are listen. Neither, of course, are perfect. There could be big errors. The betting markets, to me, are the most accurate. The war that the government had against those betting markets, trying to close them down for the presidential was a big disservice, I think, to Americans. Academics were opposed because we use those betting markets in terms of understanding how markets react to different predictions. I think in the very recent days, we've seen that turn back to Trump. Now, I would honestly say I think poly market is probably a little Trump biased, but Kalshi predicted, and the others are moved together. They're a little bit less Trump than the poly market, and you can understand why. But they're basically moving together, and they have given a turn to Trump in the last 24 hours. I think some of the very recent polls, the Atlas and Emerson, have not been quite as good as the trend might have been hoped by the Harris administration. But again, they're betting the House to be nearly 50-50, even if they're giving Trump 60-40 on that. So that is going to be very, very close. And I don't know if we will know the House by the end of the day.